When he told me, "Lucky we let you live here, Mom," my heart shattered. Emma Carter, a mother who had spent decades building a life of love, security, and sacrifice, stood frozen in her kitchen, her teenage son's words ringing in her ears. She'd spent years giving, forgiving, and supporting Michael, never asking for anything in return. But that day he pushed her too far. No more. The eviction notice she'd been too afraid to write for years was now final. And when Michael came home thinking he could keep taking, she would show him that respect is not a privilege, it's a foundation. But as the door slammed, Emma wondered if the price of peace would cost her everything she once knew about family. I'm curious, where in the world are you joining us from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed for all the latest updates. When he spat those words, my heart cracked, but my mind clicked into gear. Emma set down the last canvas bag of groceries on the countertop and began unloading. Bread, milk, she hummed quietly, content with the ordinary rhythm. At the table, her teenage son Michael looked up from his phone and offered a tight grin. Then he said it. "Lucky we let you live here, Mom." His voice was flat, almost rehearsed. Emma's hand froze above a tomato. Time slowed. The bag slipped. Tomatoes rolled across the counter, thudding against the wood like tiny warnings. Michael didn't wait for reaction. He shoved back his chair and stormed out, the screen door slamming behind him. Emma stood in stunned silence, the scattered fruit at her feet a vivid symbol of her fractured life. Minutes passed before she dared to breathe. The kitchen lights hummed, the outside world seemed distant. Her eyes drifted across the kitchen shelf and settled on the heavy leather binder, her and Robert's old deed to the house, the one she'd held onto through every hardship. Something inside her shifted. The hurt ranked up, heavy and solid, and underneath it a spark of resolve. She wiped the crumbs of tomato juice from her sleeve, gathering herself. Quietly she walked upstairs, each step steady. At the top she paused at the door to her old den. Inside, she opened a drawer on the credenza and pulled out a manila folder labeled in her handwriting, "Mortgage papers." She sat at the desk. Slowly, deliberately she opened the folder. Pages rustled. Loan agreements, payment schedules, the title certificate bearing her name as co-owner, documents she'd signed, maintained, kept safe through the years, even as words like "live here," "rent-free" echoed with growing resentment. Her heart pounded, but her breath slowed. The decision crystallized, clear and cold. Passive acceptance ended tonight. She flipped through to the signature page, her bold name alongside Robert's, decades ago. She read it as if for the first time. She closed the folder and leaned back, finger tapping the desk in time with her pulse. The weight of choice settled over her. It felt heavy but not crippling. She rose, moving toward the window. Outside, the street lay quiet. Mail truck's distant hum broken by a bird's call. She turned back to the desk, reached out and picked up her phone. Her thumb hovered over the messaging app. She thought of Michael's sneer, felt the ache in her chest, the betrayal, but also the liberation. She began typing, "Michael, we need to talk. Please come home." She paused, thumb hovering again. Then she slid the phone into her pocket. Her chest lifted. She opened the folder again, traced her name on the deed. She whispered to herself, voice low and sure, "I own this." Cliffhanger. Her phone buzzed beside her tea mug. The notification preview glowed. From Michael. Subject: draft eviction notice. She froze, thumb brushing the screen. Then she straightened, gaze unwavering. She glanced at the deed and folder, then locked her eyes on the front door. Not tonight. It felt too quiet, like the calm before everything broke. Emma paused at her kitchen island, pen hovering over the eviction notice she'd drafted. Her hand shook just slightly, just enough to feel the weight of the decision. The room was silent, too quiet, she thought, drawing in a steadying breath. She looked out the window. Alexa, the mailman, was rounding the corner, unaware of the folders waiting on the desk upstairs. Emma placed the pen down and closed her eyes. Am I being cruel? She wondered, for maybe the 1,000th time. Her heart tugged, and guilt flared at the thought of her own son evicted from the home he'd grown up in. She inhaled again and pressed a finger to her lips, remembering the control he'd wielded with careless offhand remarks, rent-free this, rent-free that, as if her kindness had been weakness. He'd exploited that generosity for years. No more. She reached for her phone and the screen glowed with a contact labeled Khan and Ortega, legal. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she tapped and waited. "Emma," came the calm voice on the other end. It was Mr. Khan, her trusted advisor. "Everything is in order?" he asked. "Yes," she said after a moment. "I own the deed, I've maintained every payment." He's a tenant, not unpaid guest. The filing complies with state regulations. Khan paused. Then you're clear. A qualified eviction proceeding. Just ensure you serve notice properly. Already drafted, Emma said, sliding her shoulders lower. Relief and regret tangled. I need to do this tonight. Understood, Khan replied gently. Let me know when it's served. She ended the call and set her phone aside. The pen on the table glinted in the lamp's light. It was the same pen she'd used to sign mortgage papers years ago. Pages now hidden in the mortgage papers folder upstairs. Proof she was co-owner. She forced herself to stand, muscles stiff, and walked upstairs. The silence pressed, coiling around her legs as the front door clicked shut below. At the top she paused. This staircase had carried laughter, tears, arguments, household symphonies. Tonight it led to the final turning point. She entered her old den and faced the small desk. The manila folder lay open to the eviction notice inside, stamped draft. Her heart fluttered again. She surveyed her handwriting, clear, formal, resolute. Then she reached into the folder and pulled out the page. Sitting, she placed it on the desk and lifted the stamp she'd used for signatures. Final copy. She pressed it down firmly. The word final imprinted like a verdict. Her chest tightened. She stood again, smoothing wrinkles from her shirt. She looked at the notice, reading the words aloud in a whisper. You have 30 days to vacate. The distance between them was measured now. She tucked the notice into her coat pocket, walked out to Michael's room door, and slipped inside. His posters draped the walls. His laptop lay open. She laid the notice on his desk with care. Leaving his room behind, she descended the stairs, each step echoing in the empty house. She passed the front hall, where shoes sat arrayed. She opened the front door, and there at the bottom of the steps, the mailman waited with letters in hand. Emma forced a composed smile, greeting him. Evening, she said, reaching for the mail. He handed over a stack of envelopes. She took them, nodded politely. The porch light glowed overhead, steady, calm. Then the screen door burst open. Michael's fury filled the frame. What did you do? He demanded, voice shaking. Emma looked up from the mail in her hands, calm but resolute. He stood in the doorway, face flushed, eyes stormy. What did you do? The final straw lit the fuse, and I watched him lose it. Michael's door slammed before Emma could shut it behind her. She stood in the hallway, eviction notice still tucked in her coat, as the paper jaggedly fluttered in the breeze. He'd ripped it nearly in half, his face raw and trembling. His rage filled the house like a storm. He paced, filletting the notice with quick, angry tears, while Emma watched, steady, deliberate. Do you think this is fair? He yelled, tearing another strip of paper. I grew up here. You can't just— Emma raised a hand. It's legal and final, she said smoothly, voice calm. You have 30 days by law. No exceptions. Michael's eyes bulged. He grabbed her laptop from the kitchen table and hurled it against the wall. The screen cracked, its glass spider webbing across the plaster. Emma flinched only once. You can't just turn our lives upside down, he spat, chest heaving. I can, she said, tone quiet but steel-lined. I did, because you decided love was optional. He moved faster than she expected. Books flew, framed photos toppled from shelves. Emma didn't step in his path. She watched as he dismantled pieces of their history. Each memory he tossed echoed in her mind. The birthdays, school events, quiet evenings. When he finished, the mess spilled across the carpet. Shards of technology, snapshots of family, half-empty notebooks. He backed away, chest heaving. This is it, he said, voice breaking. I'll make you regret this. He turned and rushed out the front door, leaving the screen door swinging on its hinges. Emma remained in place, eyes locked on the void where he'd been. The house grew silent, except for the soft thud of the screen door closing. Emma exhaled, steadying herself. She stepped forward, crossing the debris slowly, like crossing broken ground. She moved to the living room where the laptop lay. The screen was dark, spent. She knelt and gently picked it up, pressing its cracked lid shut. No display, no files, just the hollow shell of a tool now useless. Emma placed it on the couch and surveyed the chaos. Books skewed askew, framed snapshots of graduations and holidays lay face down. Her eyes drifted to a framed photo of her and Robert, blurry golden, still intact. She tucked it upright. She inhaled deeply, sensing the weight of finality. No longer a passive ship in someone else's storm. She touched the edge of the desk where she'd stamped final copy, the imprint still clear. Her hand moved to the laptop again. This one, the work machine in her home office, untouched but silent. She crossed to the desk, lifted the lid, and logged in. The crisp eviction notice, digitally stored, blinked on screen. The digital signature time-stamped her resolve. She closed it, shutting the computer down with purpose. The click echoed in the quiet. Emma moved to the kitchen and gathered up the torn eviction fragments from the counter. She swept them into her hands, small pieces of smoke and fire, then crumpled them into the recycling bin. The paper softened, promising erasure. As she cleaned, her breath steadied. The cool calm returned, tempered with the tumbling emotions of release. She stood in the center of the living room, surveying the damage and the freedom interwoven through it. This was her domain now, all of it. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, but she ignored it. The house had fallen quiet again. The only witnesses were memory and dust motes dancing in stray sunlight. Emma walked to the front door. She locked it, hearing the bolt click in place. Something about that sound felt like a new beginning. Back near the keyboard, she picked up the laptop, closed the lid, and set it aside. No drama, no shouting needed. And then a firm ding at the front doorbell. Her heart stuttered. She laid down the laptop and stepped toward the entrance. Emma pressed her palm to the door's window, braced herself, and whispered, "Who's there? He wasn't liked, but today he saved me." Emma paused at the threshold, breath steadying after the doorbell's echo. She braced for whatever or whoever stood on the porch. The door swung inward. On the steps stood Mr. Jenkins, her elderly neighbor from 2 houses down. His gray hair was windblown, and his cardigan looked soft against the afternoon sun. He held a travel mug. "I heard commotion," he said quietly. "Are you all right?" Emma swallowed. The turmoil of the past hour, Michael's rage, her resolve shifted in her chest. She managed a small nod. "Can I come in?" he asked gently. She stepped aside, extending the gesture. They moved into the living room. Dust motes floated in stray beams of light. She led him to a chair. He set the mug on the coffee table. "Coffee?" he offered. Emma hesitated, then nodded. "That'd be nice." He settled opposite her and nodded toward the chaos around them, the shattered laptop, scattered books. He reached for his mug. "Tough afternoon." She sat, folding her hands. "You could say that." He took a slow sip. "Michael, he's young. Anger's messy. But that didn't make this right. You're not in the wrong." Emma's breath caught. "It doesn't feel that way." Mr. Jenkins leaned forward. "You protected your peace. Good for you." She closed her eyes, fingers tracing the edge of the mug. Tears she'd held at bay slipped free. "I keep thinking, did I go too far?" "You did what you needed," he replied evenly. "You gave notice because you're not his doormat. You're defending your home." The words landed softly. Emma exhaled a long breath, letting the tension unwind. "I've never felt so alone," she admitted. "You're not," he said firmly. "Look around. You survive. You stand. That counts." Emma looked back at the room, the broken laptop, the eviction notice lying silent upstairs. It was her chaos, but it was also her truth. Mr. Jenkins stood, holding his mug. "Let's change the locks maybe, keep you safe, and I'll come by tomorrow with my notepad. We can make a list of what comes next." She stood too, voice small with gratitude. "I'd appreciate that." He offered a gentle smile. "You've always helped out, watering plants, collecting mail. I can do this for you now." Emma nodded, warmth blooming in her chest. "Thank you." He placed a hand on her shoulder, quick, comforting. Then he moved to the door. As he reached for the knob, Emma surprised herself by hugging him. He stiffened, then returned it with tender respect. "You did nothing wrong," he whispered. She released him, straightened, and walked him to the door. He lingered there, looking back once before stepping onto the porch. "Call if you need anything," he said, voice low but certain. "I will," she replied. He closed the door gently behind him. Emma watched until he rounded the corner, then turned back to the familiar quiet of her living room. She moved to the window and pulled the curtain aside. The empty street seemed less lonely than before. The weight of Michael's betrayal still pressed, but not enough to crush her. Inside, she breathed deep. The house felt different now, hallowed by struggle but also held by community. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it free. A new message. "Liz, Michael's girlfriend. You're going to regret this." Emma paused, hand hovering above the screen. She placed the phone back in her pocket, exhaling with clarity. She wiped the mug's rim and placed it in the sink. The steam curled upward, dissipating into calm. Yesterday she felt isolated. Today she felt seen and ready. Emma's gaze landed on the door locks she'd resolved to change, and she whispered, "Let's do this." Her text hit harder than any scream he'd made. Emma stood in the kitchen, steam still curling from the coffee cup she hadn't touched. The message from Liz stared back at her. "You're going to regret this." The words buzzed beneath her skin, meaner than Michael's tantrum, quieter than his slamming door, but it was this that made her hands tremble. She leaned against the counter. The coffee smelled burnt now. Her thumb hovered over the screen, not to respond but to reread. The message wasn't a scream, but a threat stitched with implication. From Michael's girlfriend, yes, but also from someone who believed she could still be bent. Emma closed her eyes. Her mind flickered back, how her hand had shook hours earlier as she'd stamped final across that eviction notice. How she'd stood at the edge of her own will, heart galloping, unsure if her decision would hold against the tidal pull of guilt. And now, The guilt returned, but this time it knocked differently. Her stomach twisted, her vision blurred for a moment. Should she call Khan again? Was she really going to toss her son to the curb? She opened her eyes and looked around. The shattered laptop, the broken photo frames. Her living room had become a metaphor. Rage wreckage, debris from love gone brittle. Then, without thinking, she walked into the den and sat down hard. Her mouse clicked before she'd fully processed what she was doing. She opened her cloud folder. The eviction notice glowed from the screen. It hadn't changed. Digital. Permanent. Her finger hesitated over the delete key, but then came the image. Michael's smirk that morning. "Lucky we let you live here." Let you. That phrase snapped her spine straight. Emma pushed away from the desk and stood. She walked to the window, looked out at the fence she painted with her own hands, the rose bush she trimmed, the front path she salted every winter. There was no let about it. This was hers. Inside her chest, the tremor faded. In its place, steel. She returned to the desk, minimized the eviction notice, and opened a new folder. For me. She didn't know why. It just felt right. On a whim, she clicked through an old album. Pictures filled the screen. Her and Robert at the lake. Michael as a toddler, face messy with chocolate. Holidays, messy buns, Sunday dinners. Life before fear took root. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply remembered. When the folder closed, her phone buzzed again. Emma looked down and read the reply from Liz. Michael already moved out. The words landed like a dropped dish. She blinked. He moved out. Her eyes scanned the living room again. She hadn't noticed, hadn't even thought to check. He'd stormed out, but she hadn't heard a car. No suitcase. Nothing. She didn't move for a moment. Then instinct kicked in. She walked briskly upstairs and opened his door. Empty. The bed was made. The posters were gone. The laptop, his real one, wasn't on. The house was silent, eerily so, like a bird's nest after the storm. Emma stood at the edge of the living room, the folded towel on the chair staring back at her like some sort of quiet monument. Everything else was gone. Michael's gaming console, his backpack, his blue hoodie that always hung on the banister. She turned slowly, scanning the room. Silence pressed inward. Not peaceful silence, but absence. A hollow that felt deeper than space. Upstairs again, her feet moving on their own. She stepped into Michael's room. The sunlight coming through the blinds cast long shadows on the carpet, stretching across emptiness. His bed was made, corners tucked too neatly for someone who left calmly. The drawers of his dresser still gaped open, stripped bare. A half-used stick of deodorant still sat on the shelf. His closet was empty. No note, no forwarding address, just the echo of departure. Emma ran her fingers across the edge of his desk, her fingertips brushing dust and fragments of nothing. This wasn't a planned move. It was flight. Downstairs again, the walls seemed thinner somehow, like her house was no longer shelter, just structure, a place someone used up and left behind. She pressed her palm to the stair rail to steady herself. Panic tried to bloom, but she shoved it down. What if he's sleeping in his car? What if he doesn't have money? What if he's doing something reckless just to prove a point? Emma grabbed her phone, sat on the bottom step and dialed. The ring buzzed into her ear once, twice, 6 times. Then this voicemail box is full. She hung up, waited, dialed again. Nothing. She set the phone in her lap, closed her eyes. The quiet around her thudded in her ears. What had she done? Then just as quickly, no. She opened her eyes, her jaw set. She'd given him notice. She'd given him room. She'd tried everything but erasing herself. This wasn't her guilt to carry anymore. Still, worry crawled in the cracks where resolve tried to settle. She couldn't trace him, couldn't reach him. She didn't even know if he'd eaten. Her mind flicked to Liz's text. "You're going to regret this." Emma reached for her laptop, the backup one, and opened the browser. She pulled up the legal toolkit Khan had sent and scanned the next step. If property is vacated, post formal notice of presumed abandonment per statute within 24 hours. She sighed and typed. Her fingers hovered over the last field. Date home was determined vacant. She filled it in, then hit submit. The screen blinked. A PDF form loaded. Notice of presumed abandonment. Emma printed it, pinned it to the bulletin board near the kitchen. Her name sat beside Michael's like old bruises. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. She stood again, looked around. The house was hers now, undeniably, but the cost of peace was heavy in the air. As she walked to the sink, her email pinged. One new message. Khan and Ortega legal. Subject case filing notification. Michael J. Carter v. Emma D. Carter. She clicked. Filed unfair eviction. Claim of emotional duress. Emma stared at the screen. No words. Just a rush of heat, then ice. She stepped back from the laptop, as if it had hissed. Her knees nearly buckled. The case was real, and this time he wasn't leaving quietly. He tried to drag me to court, but I was ready. Emma pushed open the door to Khan and Ortega's office, clutching her tote. The scent of leather chairs and legal certainty met her. Mr. Khan looked up, eyes calm but intense. "Let's talk," he said, guiding her to the conference room. She sat across from him, her fingers on a stack of folders labeled evidence, texts, photos, notices. Khan slid in a file stamped Michael J. Carter ver. Emma D. Carter. The case documents. "He's claiming emotional distress from the eviction," Khan said, voice measured. "Be prepared. He's framing it as trauma, even though the process followed every statute." Emma absorbed the words. Emotional distress. It sounded exaggerated, but paper didn't need truth. Khan tapped a printout. "He alleges you waited until he was emotionally vulnerable, that you ambushed him." Emma's jaw tightened. She thought of his rage, the broken selfies, the silence that followed. She felt her throat tighten. "But we have your transcript with me, your rental agreement, the deed, the dated notice." And his cloud backup shows the draft eviction was uploaded before he left. Khan opened a folder marked timeline. He pointed. May 3, notice stamped final. May 4, filed. May 5, vacancy notice published. "We can prove protocol, regularity, and he's claiming damages with no receipts." She nodded. "He can't deny I owned this. I paid everything." Khan ran a hand over his scruff. "He might try to subpoena therapy notes, or messages from Liz. He's unpredictable. Prepare to defend that you gave him time and support. But legally, we're solid." Emma closed her eyes. The adrenaline snapped in her veins. This is war. They turned to evidence gathering. Emma produced text chains, Khan cross-referenced timestamps, photos of the empty room, her log of neighbor Jenkins's visit, financial records. Khan added post-it notes, credibility, legal compliance, no negligence. At one point Emma laughed, sharp and relieved when Khan sorted a picture of her deeds and mortgage folder next to Michael's empty closet. "It's almost absurd," she said. "He packed anger, nothing else." Khan met her gaze. "Sometimes law isn't just rational, it's emotional leverage. We'll counter it with facts and context. Your fortitude shines in that." She sat straighter. "Then let's shine." They mapped out prep, witness statements, email logs, rental records. Emma would testify on procedure and intent. Khan would prepare cross-examination for Michael. No surprises. Emma reached for her coffee, cold now. She picked up her phone, reading Liz's text again. "You're going to regret this." She pocketed the phone. She didn't need to replay fear. Night fell outside the blinds. Emma's office light glowed while others faded. Khan packed papers and closed the door. Emma stayed, opening a new notebook. Hours passed. She wrote headings. Timeline, communications, witness names. She printed additional copies. Bank transfers, legal forms, her filed invoices. She structured a binder, organized, rational, honest. At 11 p.m., Emma's eyelids drooped, but she pressed on. She drafted a statement, why she chose final, when she gave space, when she knew he'd left. She practiced her tone, calm, clear, unwavering. Eventually, worn down, she surrendered to exhaustion. Her pen fell to the paper, trailing a line like soft surrender. She blinked at the swirl of documents around her, printed chits, sticky notes, legal pads. Before long, she drifted into sleep, head resting on cool wood, notebook beneath her arm. A single sheet remained upright, evidence ready, testimony clear. Her phone sat ominously on the desk, unread messages from Michael and Liz quietly blinking. At dawn, a new email appeared in her inbox. Subject line, court summons, May 10th hearing date. I stepped into the courtroom, my heart in my throat. The morning light filtered softly through the courthouse windows as Emma smoothed the lapel of her blazer. Her reflection in a mirror just outside the courtroom door showed a woman armored with purpose. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, 3 measured breaths. The ritual Khan had taught her to anchor calm. Her feet carried her inside. Rows of wooden benches stretched toward the bench, and the hush hummed low around her. She sat tall, hands in her lap, gaze forward. Her binder lay open on her lap, bound evidence, testimony points, timeline tags neatly arranged. Minutes later, the doors at the back swung open again. Michael entered, face tight, Liz at his side, arms folded. His eyes swept the room quickly before resting on Emma. She didn't flinch. Under her composure, a pulse beat with adrenaline. This was where names, papers, and truth mattered most. The bailiff stood. Court is now in session. Case number 6423, Carter v. Carter. The judge emerged, robed in black with silver hair and neutral mien. She took her seat and peered down at Emma. "Miss Carter, "Are you ready to proceed?" she asked evenly. Emma rose, voice level and steady. "Yes, Your Honor." Next, Khan stood before the judge and Michael. He introduced the case. Plaintiff claims emotional distress and improper eviction. We contend full legal compliance, timeline transparency, and prior warning, all documented. The judge nodded. "Mr. Michael Carter?" Michael stood, jaw clenched. He spoke with urgency. "She evicted me without warning. One day I had a room, and the next she served notice. She upended my life." His tone hinted at emotion, and Liz squeezed his arm for support. Emma's binder opened. She signaled Khan's nod. He gave her a brief, supportive glance. She inhaled quietly, steadying. When it was her turn, she rose. Stepping forward, she cleared her throat softly. "Your Honor." Her voice felt strong in her chest. "On May 3rd, I stamped and served a 30-day notice. I gave Michael time and space. I followed state law for property ownership and tenancy." She tapped the folder. The notice of presumed abandonment was filed after 15 days of vacancy as required. I gave him multiple written reminders and time to respond. This binder documents it. She showed the judge the binder, hands even. Khan slipped forward and assisted with time-stamped logs and delivery receipts. The judge examined them. In Michael's direction, she made notes. Michael shifted in his seat, his voice lowered. "I didn't see the notice. She ambushed me." But when pressed, admitted delivery slips bore both their names. Emma took a steadying breath. "We also involved neighbor Mr. Jenkins, who witnessed the noise, the notice, and was verbally notified. He's available to state I followed due process." The judge glanced at Liz, then back to Michael. Michael bit his tongue. Liz shook her head, voice low. "Your Honor." Emma's heart pounded, but her voice stayed calm. The judge nodded, pen in hand. "We will pause for midday recess and reconvene here promptly at 1:30. Emma returned to her seat. Khan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Emma exhaled a breath she didn't realize she'd held. As the crowd filtered out, the hallway outside filled with murmurs. Emma lingered near the doorway, gaze forward. Khan gave her the signal, and they stepped out together. She paused to watch Michael and Liz off to the left, whispering urgently. His head dipped low, her eyes darted around, searching for hostility. Then she heard it. Michael's voice, clear and quiet but raw. "She's going to destroy me before she even leaves this town." Liz answered in undertone. "Not far enough." Emma felt a chill slide along her skin. Khan looked at her. "He's rattled." Emma nodded. She felt the weight of the day shift, less on her, more on what was still ahead. She pressed her lips together and turned to re-enter the courtroom, spine even straighter. As she stepped back inside, the door clicked closed, and Emma whispered to herself, "Bring it on." He looked like a cornered animal, alone. Emma lingered in the muted glow of the courthouse hallway during recess. Voices drifted past, murmurs, gossip, anxieties, but a sobbing sound, soft and fractured, drew her toward a side corridor. She found him slumped against the wood-paneled wall. Michael, his suit jacket was discarded beside him. His shoulders shook, tears tracing silent tracks. Liz was nowhere to be seen. Guilt hung heavy between them. Emma's breath caught. This wasn't the defiant boy she had struck a stand against. It was her son, bewildered, lonely. She paused, uncertain, reminded of their last moments, his anger, her resolve, but not his pain. She stepped forward slowly, each footfall measured. "Michael?" He jerked upward, eyes red, mouth trembling. He started to speak, then froze. Finally, with ragged breath, he blurted, I was embarrassed. The notice, the whole thing. I didn't want everyone to think I was a freeloader." His voice cracked. "I never meant for it to go this far." Emma knelt before him, meeting his gaze. "You're not a freeloader, you're my son." Her voice was gentle. "I did this to protect my home, but I never wanted to shame you." He broke down, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't realize," he murmured. "I didn't understand how it looked. I thought it was just leverage." He looked up, tears spilling. "I'm sorry." Emma reached out, touching his arm. The weight of the moment settled. The courtroom stakes persisted, but here, the bond was real. "You matter to me," she said softly. "Always have." She paused. "But I also matter, and some lines, some things we both needed to face." He nodded, chest heaving. "I know now." He swallowed, trying to steady his voice. I shouldn't make you choose between me and your home." She squeezed his arm. "You don't have to choose. We face this together." He exhaled, and straightened. "I want to." They sat like that for a long breath, side by side, the gravity easing. Emma probed lightly. "Liz?" Michael shook his head. She didn't stick around." He managed a small laugh, racked with emotion. "Guess she got lost in the drama." Emma offered a thin smile. "Funny how that happens." He wiped his eyes. "I still have to do this," he said quietly. "But I want to do it with you, not against you." Emma nodded. The ache and pride she felt mingled sharply. "I'll walk in with you," he said, "if you'll have me." She rose, holding out her hand. "Walk." He stood, brushing off his pants. They moved slowly down the hall toward the courtroom doors, unified in purpose. Her binder was still there. She picked it up, glancing at him. He cocked his head, ready. At the threshold they paused. Emma inhaled, steadying, remembering the purpose of the moment, not just justice, but truth. She stepped inside, Michael at her side. Eyes in the courtroom. Liz had not returned. Watched the pair re-enter. A hush followed. They stood near their respective seats. Emma brushed her face gently, flicking tears away, but settling composure. The bailiff tapped the gavel. "Court will reconvene." Emma's heart raced, not with fear this time, but resolve. Michael stood quietly beside her, head bowed respectfully. The judge glanced toward them. The courtroom felt full, demanding truth. Michael appeared at the door next. His expression was tentative, respectful, bearing the distance of humility. "Hi," he whispered. Emma met him halfway across the living room. She motioned toward the couch. "Come sit." He sank in. Silence stretched before he spoke. "I've been thinking maybe we can figure out a way forward. Co-living, paying rent. Whatever you want." Emma looked at him, at their home, stronger now, scarred but hers. He continued, voice quiet. "I want to make this right." Emma exhaled. "That's a start." She slid the mediation paperwork across the coffee table. "Maybe this should be our next step." Michael's gaze dropped to the page, then back to her. "Yes." Later that afternoon, Elizabeth Jenkins stopped by. She brought fresh flowers and the scent of reassurance. "I've got your back," Mrs. Jenkins said, as she helped Emma arrange blooms. "Don't worry what the rest say. You stood for your rights." Emma nodded, holding the vase steady. "I couldn't have done it without neighbors like you." Mrs. Jenkins squeezed her hand. "Community is what keeps us rooted." At twilight, Emma stepped onto the porch. The house glowed in its own determined hum. Lights on, curtains drawn, her name on the mailbox. It looked like a sanctuary again. She listened to the distant drone of traffic, the soft thrum of cicadas. Messages flickered across her phone screen, texts from friends, neighbors celebrating quietly. A picture of her front porch had already circulated with hearts and supportive words. She thumbed through them, smile softening. Then her phone buzzed again, this time a different ringtone. Her breath caught. She opened the message. From Michael. "Mom, can I come home?" Emma's gaze floated outward, across the lawn, toward the street. The evening wind tousled the garden gate. She tapped the reply field, fingers hovering for just a second. Yes. She hit send. The porch light flickered exactly once. Silence enveloped her with possibility. By dawn the house would hold not just her name, but their story. As Emma stepped inside, she realized that judgment had ended a chapter, but theirs was just beginning. Emma wiped her palm on her jeans, then reopened her phone. Another message waited. "I believe in you." She stared down at the comforting words, pulse steady, heart open. His voice faltered, and so did my resolve. Michael stood at the foot of the porch steps, hands in his coat pockets, chin dipped low like a boy in trouble. The dusk threw long shadows between them. Emma waited at the doorway, arms crossed, not in anger, but in protection. "Hey," he said, voice strained. She nodded once. "Come up." He moved slowly, each step deliberate. The wood creaked beneath him, and the moment pulsed between them, awkward, charged. "I just wanted to say, I know what I did," he said, "how I acted. I hurt you." Emma didn't interrupt. She watched his mouth quiver, the way his eyes darted, avoiding hers. He wasn't there to beg. He wasn't there to fight. He was there to try. "I blamed you for everything going wrong in my life," Michael continued, "but it wasn't your fault. You didn't throw me out. You drew a line." Emma's throat tightened. She had rehearsed this moment in the courtroom, in bed at night, in front of the mirror. None of that prepared her for the vulnerability in his voice. "I don't want to come back the same way I left," he said, "not as a burden. I want to earn it, Mom. I'm not here to manipulate you." Emma inhaled slowly, feeling the breeze brush her face. "If you come back," she said, "there will be terms." He looked up, finally meeting her eyes. "You'll pay rent," she said, "help with groceries, keep your room clean, no slamming doors, no threats, no silence as punishment." He nodded fast. "Agreed, all of it. And therapy," she added, weakly, non-negotiable. Michael blinked, then, after a beat, "Already started, 1 session, it helped." The air shifted slightly, not softened, but settled. Emma stepped closer. She studied the contours of his face. So much of Robert there, so much of her. This isn't a full reconciliation, she said. It's a truce. Michael extended a hand. Not a hug, not a plea, just a handshake. She took it. His palm was cold, his grip unsure. They stood like that for a moment. Mother and son, fractured but aligned. You still like lemon bars? She asked, a trace of smile. He laughed, breathy. Only yours. She motioned to the door. Let's see if I remember the recipe. Michael hesitated. Tomorrow. Emma raised an eyebrow. I need one more night to clear my head, he said. But I'll come in the morning, if that's okay. It's okay. He stepped back down the stairs, shoulders lighter. Emma lingered on the porch, watching him until he rounded the corner. Inside, she moved to the sink, fingers brushing the counter. The kitchen felt warmer now, less like a battleground, more like a hearth. She lit a small candle, vanilla-scented, and let its flicker comfort her. As she reached for her phone to check recipes, it buzzed in her hand. Voicemail, one new message, from Liz. Emma froze. She pressed play. Liz's voice spilled into the room. Tight, urgent. Emma, we need to talk. Please call me back. Emma stood still, phone to her ear, candlelight reflecting in her eyes. The message ended, but the storm had just shifted winds. Her voice had steel. Something dark was coming. Emma opened the front door to see Liz standing on the porch, posture rigid, lips pressed into a hard line. The dusk light cast her face in sharp relief, emotion flickering in her eyes like a warning. Emma, Liz began, voice low but fierce. We need to talk. Now. Emma held her breath. She'd expected tension but not confrontation. Come in, she said calmly. Liz stepped inside, scanning the living room as if weighing its integrity. I want him out. Permanently. She spoke as though naming a verdict. Michael doesn't belong here, and I won't let this continue. Emma held the door shut behind Liz, palm against the frame. He does belong. He's an adult. My son. He has a right to stay, under the terms we agreed. Liz's eyes hardened. He'll never respect this place, our home. I won't watch him destroy it again. Emma took a step forward. The candled glow from the kitchen backed her. He's agreed to boundaries, therapy, rent, respect. That should have been enough. Liz paced near the windows. You're making a mistake. Permanent roots mean permanent damage. I can, and I will take further steps. Emma's voice was steady. What are you planning? Liz stopped. Her glare cut through the space before her. Informal complaints don't work anymore. I've already sent harassment paperwork. You'll hear soon. Emma froze. You threatened him. That's harassment. She lifted her chin. Think carefully. Emma's skin prickled, anger and fear intertwining. She swallowed, finding resolve. You're wrong. That's not who I am. Liz leaned close. Court can decide that. She turned toward the door. This ends tonight, Emma. Michael entered quietly through the side door, expression tense. He'd heard the rising voices. Mom, he said softly. Liz spun. See, there's witness. She sneered. My complaint will mention you too. Complicit party. Michael took a step toward his mother. Don't do this. Liz glared. He's an adult. I don't belong here. You told him. Now everyone gets to see that you don't want me. She met Emma's gaze. How's that working for you? Emma closed her eyes for the briefest moment. When she opened them, they were steady. He has a home now, with conditions, and I won't let you scare me into reversing that. Michael placed himself between the two women. Liz, she's right. I chose Mom's house, not because she threats me, but because I want to heal. Liz smirked, pissed. You want to heal? File motion for restitution on therapy costs. Damage deposit. Harassment. This will be messy. Emma retrieved her phone. Fingers shaking slightly, she texted Khan. Liz filed harassment complaint. What's our move? She put her phone away and looked over to Michael. Liz, I'm sorry you feel unsafe, but this is our family, our life. We'll seek legal clarity. Liz glared and turned on her heel. Her coat billowed. Her heel scraped as she strode to the door. She stood there for a breath, then slammed it shut so hard the porch rung. Michael flinched. Emma and Michael stood in the hush that followed, solidarity in the silence. He exhaled slowly. I'm sorry, he whispered. This isn't what I want. Emma placed a hand on his shoulder, voice quiet and firm. We'll deal. Together. Without another word, they walked to the kitchen. Her phone buzzed with Khan's prompt reply. Call me immediately. Emma looked at Michael. He met her with a nod. Shared urgency. Shared challenge. Emma dialed Khan as the sound of her own heartbeat filled the room. The phone rang once, twice. It clicked. Moments later, Emma's screen lit up with a new digital stamp. A court summons again. This time deeper as harassment is cited. She stared, pulse steady yet racing, and whispered, Here we go again. It was the fight I didn't know I wanted until I did. Emma and Michael stood side by side outside the small hearing room, the fluorescent lights humming softly overhead. Michael reached out, squeezing her hand. They didn't need words, just presence. Minutes later, the door opened. The bailiff called their names. They stepped inside. Liz was already seated, her posture stiff. She met Emma's gaze with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. Emma exhaled and sat with Michael, binder open, prepared. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp gray hair, entered with measured steps. She took her seat, eyes scanning both parties. Case Carter, complaint of harassment. The bailiff intoned, proceed. Liz stood with practiced precision. Her voice was cool as she recounted Pandora's half-truths. Emma's eviction notice escalated without negotiation. Michael was pressured, ambushed, even. My presence here is proof. She paused, eyeing Emma. This behavior shows ongoing control issues. Emma listened, calm. Liz rattled off claims, inconsistent communication, emotional manipulation, resentment-laced decisions. In under 7 minutes, she spun a narrative of coercion. Khan rose. He moved smoothly to present their counter. Your Honor, this complaint stems not from harassment, but from emotional frustration. Michael returned voluntarily. He accepted terms. Rent, chores, therapy. Evidence of payments and therapy receipts underscore this. He handed over documents, signed rental agreement, bank transfer confirmations, Michael's therapy log. Michael quietly handed a note to the judge, written in his own hand. I returned because I wanted healing, not eviction. The judge reviewed the note, her eyes softening. Miss Carter? Emma rose, voice steady. Yes, Your Honor. Her words resonated with clarity. He chose to come home. The eviction notice followed legal channels. I offered space, not punishment. The harassment claim is unfounded. She pointed gently to the binder. This documentation shows process, respect and support, even thank you notes Michael wrote when he first moved back. She paused. This isn't about evicting a child. It's about boundaries and ownership of my home. It's healthy. Liz's lips thinned. Emma met her glance, unflinching. Khan continued. Counsel also offers testimony from Mr. Jenkins, neighbor and witness, confirming no threats were issued verbally. Emma acted transparently, respectfully. Liz fought for composure. He's my boyfriend. I'm entitled to speak. The judge raised a hand gently. Mr. Carter, Miss Carter, she began, voice firm yet kind. I must ask, are you both safe in your respective situations? Is anyone in emotional distress requiring protection? Emma glanced at Michael. He nodded. Their eyes met. We are safe, Emma replied. We're rebuilding trust. She inhaled. We're healing. The judge closed her folder. She turned to Liz. This complaint lacks legal standing. I dismiss harassment charges. However, I caution Miss Johnson. Continued filings without basis may lead to sanctions. Liz's face paled. Her mouth opened. Then she shut it. Without a word, she gathered her coat and stormed out. Michael moved to block her path in the corridor. Liz spun. Anger flared. He placed his hand gently on her arm. We're done, he said quietly. Liz glared, but didn't push past him. She stepped back, turned and left. Back in the now empty courtroom, Emma sank into her chair. Relief washed through her. The judge's parting words echoed. You stand on solid ground. You're safe. Outside, September sunlight draped the courthouse in calm. Emma stepped onto the porch with Michael at her side. They lingered in the glow, victorious, at peace. Emma looked up at Michael. Ready? He nodded. Yes. They descended the steps together, a quiet unity in their stride. The storm had passed. At the bottom step, Michael hesitated. A crisp envelope fell from the sky, drifting, landing at Emma's feet. She looked down and picked it up. Embossed, official. Her heart skipped. The next chapter was arriving without warning. When Michael hugged me, I realized this house had become ours again. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen as the sun crept through the linen curtains, casting golden streaks across the counter. Emma poured 2 mugs, one with cream, the other black, and placed them gently on the table. The house, so long fraught with tension, felt still in a way that wasn't empty, but earned. Michael shuffled into the room, hair unkempt, sweatshirt hanging off his shoulder. He rubbed his eyes, offered a sheepish smile. Morning. Emma nodded. Hungry. He looked surprised, as if the question carried more weight than it should. Starving. They ate quietly, toast with marmalade, soft scrambled eggs, the kind Emma always made when she needed comfort. The clink of utensils was the only sound, but it wasn't strained, it was natural, gentle, human. After a few minutes, Emma folded her napkin and leaned back. I think we need to talk about what comes next. Michael straightened. Yeah, she sipped her coffee. You're here as a grown man. That means rent gets paid on the first, chores get shared, therapy doesn't stop. I understand, he said quickly. You won't have to remind me. And respect goes both ways, Emma added. We can disagree, but there will be no yelling, no slammed doors. Michael nodded. That's fair. All of it. She looked at him for a long moment. I mean it. This house, it doesn't survive another war. It either holds love, or it falls apart. Michael's throat bobbed. You never gave up on me. Emma blinked slowly. I did. A few times, in the dark. But I didn't stop loving you. His eyes glistened. I'll try to be the kind of son who earns that. They sat in that moment, warm light spilling across the table, bridging time and regret. Outside, the sound of neighborhood kids laughing drifted in through the open window. Across the street, Mrs. Jenkins watered her petunias. She caught Emma's eye and gave a thumbs up, then waved at Michael. He waved back. Surprised, Emma stood and moved to the front door. She opened it slowly, like unveiling something precious. Welcome home, she said. Michael hesitated, then crossed the threshold. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't teary. It was quiet, solid. He picked up a box from the stoop labeled Michael Keep and stepped inside. He didn't need a welcome mat to know he belonged. He felt it in the rhythm of the walls, the scent of lemon cleaner, the glow of a morning that didn't feel borrowed. Emma watched as he set the box down beside the hallway mirror and adjusted the frame gently. She smiled to herself. Small gesture, big meaning. Later that afternoon, they rearranged furniture. Michael offered to fix the squeaky hinge on the screen door. Emma let him. When he asked where she kept the toolbox, she told him without suspicion. The house responded too. It's grown softer, its corners lighter. By dusk, the porch was lit with soft bulbs. Emma sat in her old wicker chair, her tea warm in hand. Michael leaned against the railing, watching the sky fade from lavender to charcoal. The air smelled of cut grass and vanilla candle. It smelled like peace. Michael moved beside her, sitting on the steps. You okay? He asked. Emma looked at him and nodded slowly. Yeah. For the first time in a long time, he turned to her, brow furrowed slightly. You sure you're not just saying that? Emma looked out over her lawn, at the neighborhood she'd fought to stay in, at the sun she nearly lost. She placed her cup down and reached out her hand. He took it, and then wordlessly, he leaned in and hugged her. It wasn't stiff or apologetic. It was full, real, healing. The porch light blinked once. A breeze carried leaves across the walk. Somewhere inside, a song played low, one of Robert's old jazz records. The world didn't pause, but it shifted, just enough. As the camera pulls back, Emma remains on the porch, Michael beside her. The house stands proud behind them, no longer battleground, but sanctuary. Her chin lifts slightly. Her voice, soft and sure, we're home.